This is the Roundtable for April, what is it, the 28th, you guys. NFL Draft this past weekend, but what we're going to discuss this weekend are some recruiting, or I guess more about recruiting when guys get to Athens. And we'll just start it off, Josh and Quentin. And Quentin, I guess we'll go with you first. Do you think that the class of 2008, whether it be A.J. Green, Tavares King, Ben Jones, Richard Samuel, whoever, do you think they will have the same sort of impact that the class of 2007 had? There were 4 true freshmen that started in 07. What do you think about 08?
Well, will they have the same impact that the 07 guys had? I'm not real sure about that. I'm going to say no, because guys like Sturdivant and Bowling didn't have a choice. They kind of got thrown into that deal. They were very weak on the line this year, and they basically had to play. Now, are they going to have an impact? Yes, they will. Guys like A.J. Green and Tavares King, I've said all along I thought Tavares King would play. Now, is he going to go out and make tons of plays? I don't really know about that. I think we all know A.J. Green is capable of doing that, but he hasn't set foot on campus yet. I would definitely say you see Tavares King play some, and then you go to a guy like Ben Jones. Is he going to get some time up there? Could he add to the depth of the line? I think we all think he probably can. So will they make an impact? Yes. Will they make the impact that 07 made? I'm going to say no.
Josh, tell me a little bit about Ben Jones and Tavares King from your perspective.
I think King has been a surprise. I think that,
not for those of us who saw him, but I know what you're saying.
That's true. That's not for the people who knew him and who had seen him play, but for the rest of us who, and the general public out there who heard A.J. Green. I think Tavares, this coaching staff is just so hankering for a guy who will consistently catch the football and, get a first down. He doesn't have to get 20 yards, 30 yards, just catch the football and make a first down. And if Tavares King will do that, I think he'll play. I'm with Quentin. I think he could absolutely make an impact. But I don't think this class has a chance to make as big an impact as last year's did, only because there's no telling where that team would have been without Bowling and Sturdivant.
What about Ben, Josh?
I don't know. It's so hard for me to say, having not, you're not privy to a lot in spring practice. The G-Day game, he looked okay, I thought. I didn't think he ran people over. That's a tough spot to ask him not just to play offensive line as a true freshman, but also to play center. And that's the hardest spot probably for those guys on the line. So I think it's a lot to expect him to start, and he could certainly make a contribution to provide some depth at that spot, and that would be a big deal.
All right, Quentin, in the time we have left in this particular segment, how good is A.J. Green? What are we dealing with here?
I think he's the best high school wide receiver I've ever seen. Now, granted, I'm only in my 30s, so, but how good is he going to be in college? I don't think you really know. He's such a playmaker. He's the real deal. And does that translate into doing the same type of thing against SEC secondaries? And I'm not sure about that. I think he's got a great quarterback to throw to him. So I don't think there's any doubt about that. And Georgia will always have a solid quarterback while he's there. Is he going to be the type of impact that people want him to be? I think that might be expecting a little bit much, although I think the kids, I don't want people thinking I'm double dipping here. I think he's the real deal. I just don't think he is going to be the type of player that you see on those high school films in college. I think that's almost expecting too much. Could he be an all-SEC receiver? Yes, he could.
And he was one of the guys that made it was a big splash when Georgia got him. And I was looking over stuff the other day, you guys, and a lot of the stars at Georgia, if not almost all of them, it seems, are from out of state. Now, Josh, that's a big deal, but it doesn't seem to make sense. Georgia is a state with full of football talent. Other other programs around the country, whether it be LSU, Louisville, whoever, come to Georgia and try to make their money here. Tell me about the impact of out-of-state players and why that's a big deal, or if it's not a big deal at all from your view.
I think it's a huge deal. I think that, first of all, I think you could probably argue the flip side of this, in that Georgia has lost some in-state kids, some big-time in-state kids who maybe could have helped them, but
well,
not
a million of them though.
No, but there have been 2 or 3 here or there, but
yeah.
But some kids are just not going to stay home, and I don't think you can't expect them to get every one of them, but they do get a ton, and then they go out and they get I mean, they don't generally get dogs from out of state.
No.
They seem to be pretty selective. You know, last week we talked about Aaron Murray. I mean, they go after a guy who they really feel like can help them, and they get some high-profile guys out of other states. And I think I don't want to feed this hyperbole machine any more than I have to, but you know, that's how you build a really great team, sort of a dynasty, if you can build a dynasty anymore, a dynastic type team is, you know, you take care of your home state, your business, as best as anybody can be expected. And then you go out and you get some difference makers out of state when you have to.
And they have
you
gotten
find this kind of difference maker in your state. Yeah.
I mean, Noshawn Moreno was not in Georgia. There was no guy like that. There was no Matthew Stafford Quentin in Athens or in Georgia. There are just so many different playmakers, y'all, that you know, I really feel like you get the base from Atlanta and South Georgia, et cetera, and then you go out, Quentin, and you get Muhammad Massaquoi or Sturdivant or whoever who you gotta have kind of, or maybe it's a luxury in the case of a Moreno or Stafford, and you get them. You know, think about it.
Well, I don't think you can ever complain about the job Georgia does in the state of Georgia. They pretty much clean it up. They may miss a guy every now and again, but they do pretty much about as good a job as you can do recruiting their own state. And then they've shown this deal where they can go into other places. They can get a Matthew Stafford out of Texas. You know, they can get an A.J. Green out of South Carolina, who never even looked at South Carolina or Clemson.
You got that right.
I mean, that kid was with. I mean, it feels like he's been committed to Georgia forever.
He has,
and because he has. And that kid was the best wide receiver in the country and one of the best wide receivers to come out in forever. So I think they do a great job in state, but at the same time they're going and it's not like they're just getting these kids from one other state. They pick them from all over the place too. And I think that you're going to have to keep doing that to have the type of team Georgia wants year in and year out.
I mean, speaking of which, Josh, I mean the most notable out-of-state guys. Let's put Matthew aside. We'll talk about him some other week. But, you know, Noshawn Moreno is from New Jersey. How big a deal, I mean, how realistic is him winning the Heisman? You and I both have a Heisman Trophy vote. How realistic is it for Noshawn Moreno to surpass Tim Tebow, et cetera, to win that thing? What does he have to do? What does Georgia have to do? And I'll get to Quentin right after that.
I think that Georgia has to win a lot of games and play in a BCS bowl game. I think that Noshawn has got to run for a whole passel of yards. You know, we're talking in the 1,600 range, I would think. Or we'll put up a really staggering yards per carry, because I'm not sure that he's going to get a ton of carries, you know, Heisman-like carries, for a couple of reasons. I think that teams are going to come into the game keying on him. And Georgia's got plenty of talent at quarterback, certainly, to make people pay. And they're not going. They've proven over and over again they're not going to force anything.
Nope.
You know, if people stack the box, they're going to let Matthew Stafford throw it because, you know, he can throw it. For one thing, he can beat people throwing it all day long. So, based on that, based on the fact that Georgia is going to rotate tailbacks, no matter how good the first guy is, they're going to get number 2 and maybe number 3 a couple of carries. I'm not sure Noshawn's going to have a huge total. Now, if he didn't have an enormous total, but he had some sort of ridiculous yards per carry, I think maybe that could offset it.
Quentin, in the limited time we have?
Yeah, I don't see any way that he can win the Heisman. Not that he's not a Heisman caliber player. It's not what I'm saying. My point is Josh's point. He is not going to get 25-plus carries week in and week out, which is what it's going to take, which is what those Heisman guys, running backs, historically, I don't know it off the top of my head. You go and look at how many carries they get per game, and it's probably at least 25 to 30. And he's just not going to get those types of carries. A Caleb King or somebody's going to come in and get some more carries. You've got a great quarterback who's going to be allowed to throw the ball. And Josh is right. They're going to take what the defense gives them. They're just not going to pound the ball no matter what. They're going to run the ball, but they're not going to do stupid things. Georgia's going to be smart, and Bobo's going to call the right plays. So I just don't think he gets the number of carries. I'd love to see him win it, but I don't think he's going to have the type of carries that's going to put his yardage up there where it needs to be.
With that said, next week we'll catch everybody and we'll talk about Georgia's chances of going undefeated. For that time being, this has been the Roundtable on DawgPost.